Welcome to Burning Hintz Football. I'm Matt Burns and I'm with Scott Hintz, and we're just going to do a review of the Super Bowl of Bucs beating the Chiefs in a defensive masterpiece by the Bucs. So what are your thoughts based on what happened on Sunday, Scott?
I think, as of recording this, it's already come out that Mahomes is getting surgery. So I would have to say that probably had a massive impact. And then missing those two alignment, I think everyone knew that it would have some impact, but I wasn't expecting them to be able to have pressure on Mahomes with basically blitzing for most of the entire game.
Yeah, so we did our predictions like right after the championship game, so like 2 weeks before, and as like we both picked the Chiefs, and as the weeks went on, I was like getting more and more worried because they kept on talking about Mike Remmers, and Mike Remmers this is his second start in the Super Bowl, and last time he started was for the Panthers, and he lined up against Von Miller, and I can't say he did any better, this time around than he did last time. So it was. Every single time it seemed like the second half we were like third quarter they'll figure it out, and they just never did. And one of the things that just struck me is why they just didn't run the ball more, because they started off the second half with running the ball, was getting good yards with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they just never. They're a passing team, but it just felt like almost like the Bills, and Pat Mahomes almost looked like Josh Allen, running backwards 30 yards, except he was making unbelievable throws. What Josh Allen does that too, but not to the same extent. But it was kind of a boring game, and there's the penalties in the first half that were questionable, and it just never seemed like the Chiefs had a chance, really. You thought that maybe they were going to pull it off, but not really.
Yeah, I would say that those penalties are probably the big reason why they didn't just dive into the run game, because they just dug themselves such a big hole that they knew they had to keep passing. But it like for a little bit there, like with CEH and Williams, it was looking like they had a decent run game going, and then they kept going back to the passing game, and like just Mahomes was running around and just dancing back there, and got off some passes that were like completely unbelievable that he even got them off, and then the one hit his receiver in the face.
Yeah, I think that was the running back. But also Kelsey just did not look himself. He dropped a big third down pass in the first quarter or second quarter. And He just seemed like every single time he was just trying to catch the ball. Like he had a great game, but he definitely didn't. He looked a little scared out there, to me at least.
Yeah.
So that's over. Now that's the fun, which is probably the craziest offseason we've probably ever had in the NFL, at least.
Yeah.
For our memories, and I don't think it's was crazy back in the day, but we had a pretty crazy QB carousel. We had Stafford go to the Rams, but now we're going to basically go through all these different QBs that we think are going to on the move, and we're going to also include rookies. So the draft position, we got 4 guys, and then we might include Mac Jones, but we're going to start with Trevor Lawrence, who I think were unanimous to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags will be not searching for any free agent QBs, but taking Trevor Lawrence. And I'm sure you agree, Hinty. And who's your next QB on the carousel?
I'm going to just continue the rookies, and I'm going to go with Justin Fields. He's who actually I think is the second best quarterback in the draft. I'm not sure where you think he's going, but I have Fields going to Detroit more than likely, but I really, really hope that he goes to the Panthers, because I think that Fields can step in and start doing something right away. And I think if you give, I think Carolina is a quarterback away from being like right there. The defense is still young, but you could see how that defense improved throughout the year. And the weapons on offense, I know they're losing Curtis Samuel, but DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, CMC, I think you put Justin Fields back there. I think that could be a fun team. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year, in the playoffs and competing.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how much yardage they put up passing the ball, and only had 15 passing touchdowns. So, Teddy's a nice quarterback, but he definitely does not fit for what we're trying to do. Fields is the weirdest one because, at the beginning they're saying definitely the Jets, go number 2. And then they're saying, maybe they'll pick Zach Wilson. And then how far does Fields slide? Will he go to Atlanta? I can't really see him falling past 4. And I think someone's going to jump to 3 to grab him if the Jets don't. I'm going to pick though. I'm gonna pick the Panthers. I think they're going to jump up to 3. I don't think they're going to give up what they want for Watson, and I think they're not going to allow a divisional rival and the Falcons to grab Fields. They were willing to give up their 8 for Stafford and like a third I saw. So I really think that that's going to be the move for them. I think they're going to get scared off by Watson or just not going to want to deal with Houston. So I think that's where they're going to go. I think they've shown they're going to be aggressive and they'll do that. So I'm going to pick my next, which is someone who I think will be in the same division as Field, which is Jameis Winston. And I think he's going to be staying with the Saints. And I think it's going to be a really interesting year for him. I'm not sure what his contract's going to be, but I could see him taking almost very little money again because he did 1 year, $3 million. But sounds like Peyton said he wants him to be the starter. He had an interview on Good Morning Football where he was basically praising him. And I just think it's a good fit. You know, he was with Bruce Arians, which was like the possible worst fit because he has interception issues. And then Bruce Arians is a guy who you'll throw a lot of interceptions with, whereas Sean Payton's sort of the exact opposite. So it'll be interesting to see Winston go against the Bucs, who just won the Super Bowl without him, which has got to be soul-crushing. And then we'll see where the Falcons and the Panthers are at with new QBs or whether they stay with Ryan and everything. It's weird. The NFC South's a weird division right now.
I'm going to be not that exciting and actually say, like, that's where I want Winston to stay, and that's where I think he'll end up being. I think the reason why they went with Taysom Hill this year is just to kind of be like, here's your shot after giving him a contract. I mean, he's just not going to be a starter in the NFL. I mean, I think he's good at his role that he has in New Orleans. So I think Winston will probably take over the starting job and keep it.
Yeah, I think Peyton was really just trying to be loyal to Taysom after, hold him on for so long, paying the contract. But I don't think long-term he's a great guy to be your starting quarterback. But, I mean, he's an amazing player. But I think he'll work well with Winston if, we'll see how Peyton deals with it. But
Yeah.
So who's your next guy?
My next guy, I'm going to go back. Let's actually just go with a big one, and we'll just hit Watson. I think he's going to go to Miami. Like, that is my thoughts. Unfortunately, I don't think that deal gets done until draft day. Because I think Houston's come out. They've said that they're declining phone calls with anyone trying to basically deal Watson. I just think that Houston is in their little bubble and they're like, oh, somehow we're going to get him back. But I mean, from my interpretation, I think that Watson, it doesn't matter what they come to him with at this point. He's checked out of the building. He's ready to go anywhere, basically. And I think Miami is a good fit for him. I think that defense is right there. And they can afford to give up a player on defense too with Tua, and they have plenty of draft capital to give up to basically get arguably a top 5, I would say guaranteed top 5, arguably a top 2 or 3 quarterback in Watson in the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that Miami is the destination. I know people have thrown out the Jets out there, but to be honest, I think that the Jets will actually stick with Darnold. I know it doesn't seem like the greatest idea because we've not seen what he's like. But, I mean, he's had Adam Gase as head coach, and we all saw what Tannehill's doing now that he's out of Adam Gase's, just absolutely horrendous offense.
Yeah. It's weird with Watson. I think that I agree with you on the Dolphins that it's the most likely if he moves. I think he's going to go to the Dolphins, but I'm starting to think that this Houston organization is incompetent. Just starting to think it. I think that they might not make the trade during draft, and it might not be happening until August or until literally he has to not show up, and that they think that they can just say, eventually he'll show up, eventually show up. I think that they're going to strong arm him and try to make him stay, and maybe he'll have to pull Carson Palmer and actually sit out. I don't think it's out of the question. So I'm going to say Houston. I really think I don't think they know what they're doing. I don't think they have any communication with him, and they think they can repair it just because they're an NFL team, and this has really never happened before since Carson Palmer. But I feel like that was a little bit. Carson made it clear to the owner. He had like a phone call with him and said, "I'm done," basically. And it seems like he requested a trade, but it didn't seem like it was. I don't know. A Houston owner is not. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a personal guy who's like understanding what's really going on.
So with that, if you don't think that he goes till August, the Dolphins will use up a lot of the draft capital. Who do you think, where do you think they might be able to send him if they don't get him able to trade him till August? Because I personally, I think if it goes till August or like July and like they have their OTAs and everything, I don't think Watson shows up to anything. I think he just takes the fines.
I could see him sitting out a year.
Okay.
But because the weird thing is, like, everyone's gonna have their QB settled. It's not gonna be like the Patriots are picking up Cam Newton, at the end. And literally, the Patriots are probably the only team I would say could do it. And I don't know if they will give up. I mean, they'll have leverage at that point that they can only give up two firsts.
Watson has the no trade clause, and I don't think New England is a very. I could see him saying no.
Blocking it. I think at that point he would just want to play football, and he might take it. And the allure of Bill Belichick, but I guess there's no allure to that offense. But
he just played with Bill O'Brien, and that's a Belichick guy.
Kind of. For like 2 or 3 years. I feel like Bill O'Brien. I guess it's the same idea of like I'm in charge of everything. Bow to me. But yeah, I think he'll be in Houston. I think he might be sitting out this year. So did you just pick Watson? So is it my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
All right, we're gonna go with Carson Wentz, and there's like a lot of chatter that he's gonna go to the Bears for Foles and a first, which would be ridiculous. Which is why we've talked and I've said there was no reason to keep pace. He's proven that he can't do anything, and if he does that, Jesus Christ. I still think he's not going to go to the Bears. I think that the Colts are going to try to make a move because I feel like it's panic mode for them now. They're not really willing to give a lot of capital up. They would not even give their first for Stafford, which was like pretty insane when you were hearing what everyone else was going to give up. So I think at some point, unless they really want to go with Brissett again, which I think they could still like sneak into the playoffs, but they're not going to do anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It might be worth taking a chance on him. And they've got the cap space. They can kill 2 years and draft some guy next year if it's really a disaster. How long are they going to sit and wait, essentially, the Colts? Yeah. So what do you think?
I think the Bears are dumb enough to make the move to go get Wentz. I think he'll end up being with the Bears. I hope we don't do what I've been hearing, which is like a lot of people have been saying that they're looking for a Matthew Stafford-esque deal for Wentz, which is just absurd to me. Like, you're going to take a quarterback who you benched and be like, guys, multiple first-round picks, please, and we'll take a quarterback in exchange. You're going to take his fat contract that is completely overpaying him. I think that the Bears are dumb enough to give up at least a first-round pick and Foles for Wentz, which I'd be happy to ship out Foles, bring in Wentz, but I don't really want to give up a first for that. I'd rather, if anything, we'll give you a first this year, but we get your first next year or something.
We spoke and we were saying third rounder. And then Colts and Wentz. That kind of makes some sense.
Yeah, that would be okay. I'd be okay with that. But Bears haven't had a first round pick since the horrendous pick of Trubinsky.
Yeah, and
for
if
sure.
you get Wentz, you can't keep Trubisky because that's basically the same player almost at this
Yeah.
point.
So I do think that Wentz has a lot of, like, you saw what he did through his 2017, 2018, and 2019. This year was a bit horrendous, but I mean, at the same time, he's never had like consistent play at the wide receiver or honestly anywhere on his team because there's been injuries constantly.
Yeah, he's got good
Um,
tight ends, but the O line's been shuffling around, and
yeah.
the running backs. I mean,
And I think that if he got that, I honestly think if he goes anywhere, he's going to make a step forward again. I think that the Eagles have just basically shoved him into the ground.
can't really go back.
But I hope he actually goes. I personally hope that he goes to the Colts because I think that the Colts are really just missing a quarterback. And I think Wentz with, I mean, I would say Colts are the best O line in the NFL. Like maybe able to argue another team in there, but I just think that they're just so like well round. Like it's all five of them are good.
Yeah, unfortunately, they
And
lost Costanzo to he's
yeah,
retiring. But if Wentz fails there, he's done. So I
yeah.
mean, that's a perfect spot. So what about your next guy?
All right. I'll continue going with our college players. Where do you think Wilson's going to land? Do you think he's going to the Jets?
I think he's going to the Jets. Yeah, I think he's going to the Jets. Unfortunately.
I think he's going to the Falcons. And I hope he goes to the Falcons because I really have no love for the Falcons. And I think Wilson's going to be a bust. I don't think the Jets are going to, I think the Jets are going to give Darnold another shot. Um,
Yeah, I think I'm really down to the Jets and the Falcons. I think it's gonna be one of those two teams because I don't think anyone's going to trade up for Wilson. I think Fields is like the guy that you're going to trade up for, and I think Wilson, you're just happy that he comes up. I'm not crazy about him. He's a 1 year wonder, but I mean, people love him, but he's got that kind of cocky attitude where it kind of almost feels like Johnny Manziel a little bit. But I think the Jets will take him because he fits with the offense, whatever that sort of means. And yeah, we'll see with the draft, and there's gonna be all these rumors. There's all these different things that people will say that changes, and then sometimes it's goes back to whatever they said week day one, and Fields will go two or whatever. Or it'll be like the Browns picking Baker Mayfield, and it'll be all just wild and sort of random. Yeah, so I got Wilson. I think Wilson's going top four. So you got Falcons, I got Jets, and let's just finish off the rookies if we're gonna do this. I'm gonna do Trey Lance.
I think that he's going to the Panthers. I just think that you look through it, it's going to be Jacksonville takes Lawrence, Falcons take the second quarterback with Wilson because I don't have the Jets taking anyone. Lions take Fields, and I think the Panthers personally land the second best quarterback in the class in Lance. Um, I mean, I don't care what division football you play. If you don't throw any interceptions in a season, that's fantastic. And then if you do that with throwing, I think he had 49 touchdowns that season. Like that's even better.
I think he was 28-0.
It was
His
28
first.
no.
Yeah.
I thought there was another year that he threw at least 30.
Nah,
But
he's a 1 year guy, and then he played that one game
yeah.
recently. But he's like a physical specimen.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna fall to Detroit, and I think he's gonna be Detroit's backup plan to see if Goff doesn't work out there, which it's gonna be hard for him to work out there because they're probably gonna lose Kenny Galladay. They'll probably lose Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones said he wants to go to the Rams to meet with Stafford, and then their O-line's okay, but you pretty much have Hawkinson, and then he'll
Yeah.
have a running game probably, but it'll be good for him to set a year. Lance, he played in D1A, and then now he's going to be going to the NFL, and he can sit a year behind Goff and let Goff take all the shots and basically be a sitting duck while they get some amazing draft capital. Yeah, I think it's going to be weird because there's those five teams: the Jets, Jags, Falcons, Panthers, and Detroit, who are potentially going to get a quarterback. You can see the Jets and Detroit potentially say no, even the Falcons if they want to keep Ryan, but who knows? But it'll be interesting to see where it goes around.
I will say personally, I would love to see him. I would love to actually see the Bears trade up and get Lance if they can. That would be a guy that I would love to see us trade up to. Like 6? I think we would have to go to because Lions are at 7.
I think there's gonna be a lot more movement in the draft this year. There's 4 QBs, and there's always movement. And I've always seen like almost every single mock drafts, Lance falling to 8 to the Panthers. That Lance falling to top 4 in the top 8. I don't think everyone's gonna sit pretty. I think people are gonna move around, and I think you could see a team like the Bears or the Niners or the Patriots try to move up and get Lance. I don't think that's out of the question. So you just picked Lance. So let's go to.
Actually, I believe you picked Lance to finish off.
Okay, then you go. Good. I don't have a good. I need to.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do Dak Prescott. Do you think he stays with the Cowboys?
Yeah, I was seeing there was like some ESPN article that said his best possible destination was the Panthers, and I was like, what? But yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to keep him. It makes no sense to try to grab someone else. They're not in a good spot to draft like a top QB. Their hands are tied.
I mean, here's what I personally am looking at. He already took his franchise tag, like his completely restricted. So this year it is like an unrestricted free thing.
You can talk
an unrestricted franchise tag where like another team can basically top your offer and then you have the option to match it.
Oh, really?
I want to see Washington come up with a fat contract for him and steal Dak Prescott. I think that would be absolutely amazing.
That would be fun to watch in the division.
Yeah. And I like, especially because like personally, I think out of all the quarterbacks that we've talked about, I think Watson is the best one. But I mean, I would take Dak over any of these other guys.
Yeah.
But he's like, as I said, like, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get him a contract because of the Amari Cooper contract and the Zeke contract and basically all these fat contracts they already have.
Yeah, but I think the Chiefs and the Rams have proven that there's just always some way to work it with the salary cap.
If they can get a deal done for like a long-term deal, I think that he'll stay with the Cowboys, but it would not surprise me if they try and franchise tag him for a second year in a row, which basically means that any team can match it. And I think there's a ton of teams out there that would be willing to match a fat contract for Dak.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what the price is going to be too, because I think it's somewhat related to the salary cap, and we'll see what happens with the salary cap, whether it dips a little bit, which there are rumors of that possibly happening. All right, I'm going to go with Matt Ryan.
All right.
I'm going to ask you who you think he's going to go to, because it is an odd one.
All right. I have Matt Ryan. I actually have him. Realistically, I think that Washington will go out and grab him.
Really?
I think Washington is looking at their team saying, I mean, they're like I would say like offensively wise, they're missing a few pieces, but Gibson really turned it on at the end of the season. That defense is already ready. I mean, there's a few things that you can kind of add, especially in the secondary for them, but their front seven's fantastic, especially their front four. You have Terry McLaurin, which Matt Ryan just needs an elite receiver, and I think he will have that in McLaurin. So I think Washington is a smart fit, and I think that's where he'll end up. I would love to see Matt Ryan go to San Francisco though, because that would be so much fun. That team just needs a quarterback, and that team's ready, especially coming back from all the injuries that they had this year on defense.
Yeah, that's my pick. I think he's going to go to the 49ers. I think it's going to be a draft, or at least close to the draft day thing. I think we both were talking to each other and saying that basically like Matt Ryan is going to be as close to the draft as possible. It just seems that way because they're going to want to have a plan, the Falcons, on what they're going to do and make sure that they know what they're going to have going into next year. I think it is possible that he stays with the Falcons if they just can't figure out a deal, just because that contract's so fat. And it might be post-draft. But I think the Niners make the most sense. I mean, I think the Washington, I think the Colts are potentially a team they can obviously eat the contract. And then the Niners. And the Niners, the difficulty is where is Jimmy G going to go? And whether he's going to go to the Falcons or they try to ship him off somewhere else, like the Patriots, which has been a common thing for all that. But I do think the Niners are probably the most likely, especially with the Shanahan connection, and it just makes sense. Missing out on Stafford, it didn't really seem like they put a solid offer out on Stafford, but I think maybe that has something to do with wanting Ryan, because obviously they want to get rid of Jimmy G because they went after Kirk. But so did I pick Matt Ryan, right? So you're up next.
Yeah. We're running out of your big name guys. But I'm gonna throw out. I'm just gonna throw out a player here real quick. Gardner Minshew. Do you think he lands a spot next year?
I don't know. He's not doing himself much favors with just being a personality off the field. I think he'll probably be backing up Trevor Lawrence. I think he's a solid backup. He really feels like Fitzpatrick to me, but not as proven yet. But it took Fitz a while. But I think he'll stay with the Jags. I think someone will pick him up. I mean, he's a little bit of distraction, but he can play. He's not terrible.
I was thinking personally, looking at the Lions and how far out they need to rebuild with not having any wide receivers and an O-line that needs help and a defense that needs a lot of help. And I was thinking going out, if they can do it, one of the things that I saw and I've not forgotten it because I just think it'd be amazing, is if they were able to trade Goff somehow to another team, even for like a second round pick, and just eat the contract, and they could grab Gardner Minshew to basically hold them over this year, and they could grab a high-end O-lineman that would greatly help that offensive line, and there's tons of defense in that draft, and they can trade back and pick up more picks. So if they really, really wanted to do this right, which I think they do, giving a 6-year contract for the head coach, I think I could see them trading back. And I think Gardner Minshew would be a good guy to basically not make it seem like you're tanking a season, but tanking a season at the same time.
Yeah, if Detroit doesn't go QB, I mean, Minshew fits well with Dan Campbell, I feel like. But they'd probably have to trade a pick to get rid of Goff. And, I mean, the places that would take Goff, I mean, I think the Colts is always coming to mind for me just because of that huge salary number they have. They can eat it. And Goff's not a bad QB, but I'm not sure you want to pick up Goff after, the Rams basically just threw him to the side. But, I mean, it's.
I mean, what I'm saying is if the Lions were to trade Goff, I think they basically eat his contract. Like they would take.
Like all pay for like the first year or the heavy cap year. Could happen.
Yeah. That way, they can basically build for the future, get a pick, and the other team basically gets a free QB, basically.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of movement for Gardner Minshew to me.
Yeah. I just think that it would be an interesting area for him to land.
Yeah, I don't see the Lions dumping Goff again. That seems a little mean. And also the GM for the Lions is a Rams guy, so I think maybe he has some confidence in Goff. But I'll pick the next guy who I think is still a big name, but is a lot of people think he's done, which is Cam Newton. And I think Cam is people, say whether he's done as a starting quarterback. And I think that's possible that he's basically going to have to become a Taysom Hill if he wants to continue the league. But I do think he had such an up and down year. He looked really great sometimes, and he looked god awful sometimes. I could see him going to Washington with Ron Rivera and playing again because he kind of fits that mold. I mean, they don't have a lot of great receivers. They have Terry, but he never had good receivers on the Panthers until basically he was injured. I mean, their O line's solid. I think him and Gibson would be a fun kind of read option style. I mean, I think Rivera likes guys that can move, and I mean, he knows Cam, and I think that would mesh. Whether it works out, if he can stay healthy, is a different question. But I think that's the best fit. If Cam's going to get another chance, he's either going to stay with the Patriots, which I think is actually pretty likely, more likely than some people think, or he goes to the Washington football team.
I don't think he gets a starting job, but I think that the Ravens are where I could see him landing a backup job. I
Yeah,
mean, you saw what happened this year where, like, with the one game where Lamar had to back himself up because RG3 wasn't in and then McSorley went down. And you have this quarterback who basically is a less talented. Well, I mean, I would say if Lamar Jackson or if Cam Newton was at his peak, he's basically a small step down from where Lamar Jackson is. Like they're very similar in everything.
they're like
Lamar Jackson's just a little bit faster.
they're completely different scrambling quarterbacks because you got the speed guy versus the power guy. I think Cam's had a little bit more passing the ball, but I don't think he can pass the way he used to. But yeah, I think that makes sense because RG3, he doesn't have the speed anymore after that the knee surgeries. And Trace is a funny story that people like, but you don't want to trust that. You had the Browns game where he couldn't play because of COVID, and then RG3 tweaks his hammy like in the third quarter. And there's the Steelers game where that happened, and the Browns game where he needed to go to the bathroom was what people thought, and then he came back and saved the day, which was like incredible game. But I mean, Cam Newton would be a great backup in a lot of places. It's just whether he's. I think he could work in that locker room. So that makes a lot of sense. So you're up next.
All right. The last quarterback that I have that is available and landing that I think could land a starting job is I just want to talk about Denver real quick. I personally think that Fitzpatrick would be fantastic there.
Yeah.
Like out of all the guys that are out there, like, I mean, I know there's a ton of guys that we haven't talked about still, but I think if Denver wanted to, they could go out and grab Fitzpatrick for next to nothing. And that team is so deep at wide receiver, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
They have all the offensive weapons. Like, I know you're playing with fire whenever you go with Fitzpatrick, but like that defense it's a good defense. And I mean, if the Dolphins don't bench him this year, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like he's still playing some of his best football. He wants to go out there and be competitive and he wants to win. You're gonna have Courtland Sutton back being healthy. And I mean, two rookie wide receivers that both shined this year and looked good. And you have Noah Fant at tight end. You're still going to have Lindsey and Gordon. I don't see why you don't go out and try and make a play because, I mean, to be honest, Locke is not the answer. I thought he might be. I was hoping he would be, and he just is not.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say with Locke, like he's been erratic to say the least. And a lot of people have been saying, some people have been making comparisons of Locke to a young Fitzpatrick, which is kind of funny. It's hard for me to believe that Denver is going to cut bait going into the third year when he had no offseason this past year. But I mean, Fitzpatrick makes sense there. I mean, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs in that division because you're dealing with, we'll see what the Chargers look like in year two with Herbert. But, you got Pat Mahomes, and then the Raiders they're going to be at least around 500 somewhere. So, I mean, but if the Denver wants to make a play, but it's a weird team over there. It's probably Fangio's last year. They might lose Von Miller. I mean, who knows? Fitzpatrick, that makes a lot of sense, but I could still see him staying in Miami, whether they keep Tua or if they in fact trade for Watson, I could see him being the backup for Watson. But yeah, he's a weird one because it's like he had that one shot with the Jets to make the playoffs with Todd Bowles, who looks like people are saying, oh, he might get another chance. But that fell to pieces. But I still have a couple quarterbacks that I think are going to be moving around, and I think that's Jimmy G, who I think is going to go to the Patriots. If he gets, I'm assuming you're thinking he stays with the Niners.
I'm thinking that he probably stays with the Niners more than likely. I just I don't see them making a move. I think if they do, that's probably in their best interest. But I just don't know who they would actually go out and get. I mean, the Stafford deal threw off the entire quarterback market.
Yeah.
So
you have to
I'm
give
not
it
sure.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they're going to give up for it. I do think that they could afford to give up a player because, I mean, they don't really need a running back. I think if Debo can stay healthy, you have Debo and Ayuk. Um, Kittle is amazing. So, I mean, I think if they can just stay healthy and you go out and get a quarterback, I think that team could be there. But it is hard to say what they end up doing. I think it'd be
Yeah.
weird for Garoppolo to go back to New England after being there.
Yeah, but I could see the price being a second round pick, and I could see the Pats pulling that. But the one thing with Jimmy G, a lot of people are trying to trash him that he's bad on the field, but I think the biggest thing is that he's never on the field. He
Yeah,
tore
I
his
think that's his biggest
ACL,
problem too.
and then he doesn't play at all this year. And then when he was on the Patriots, I mean, he came in for 2 games during the Brady suspension, and he didn't even make it through the 4 games. They had to put Brissett in because he got hurt. So that's the question, is whether he can actually stay healthy. But I think it would make sense. I think the Patriots need to make a move, and we're never going to give a lot of draft capital or overpay for anyone. And I think that kind of fits that. And do you have anyone else? Because I got one more person who you already mentioned where he's going to go, but where you think he's going to go.
I'm just looking around. The only other one that I'll bring up is where do you think Trubinsky lands?
Yeah, that was not the one I was going to pick, but that's the one where I think he's going to have to settle to be a backup. And I think it's going to be totally random. I really have no idea. I don't think anyone that's starting for a QB, I don't see Washington going for him. I don't see the Colts going for him. I don't think anyone's going to say we're going to run with Trubisky. I think it's going to be someone that maybe his best bet is doing something like what Tannehill did with the Titans, or what Mariota kind of doing with the Raiders, which is sitting back in a second spot for a guy that's got kind of shaky ground. I mean, maybe he backs up Jimmy G, but I think Shanahan's in love with his backups for some reason.
I'm gonna say that I think more than likely, I think that the Bears end up re-signing him.
Yeah, if they don't get Wentz, I guess that makes the most sense.
And I think, honestly, whenever you look at how I know he's not the most accurate quarterback and he's made a lot of mistakes, but I mean, his first year you can't count against him. That year just doesn't count.
John Fox.
Yeah. That game just doesn't count. Or that year. I was thinking of the one I think it was against Carolina where he threw a total of
it was 5 or 6 passes. Yeah. It reminds me of Goff's first year with Jeff Fisher. It's the same idea, where it's just awful matchmaking there.
I think you really noticed it towards the second half of the year with the Bears, whenever their O-line started to play a little bit better and we started running the ball. He's not the greatest quarterback. I don't expect Mitch Trubinsky to ever be an elite quarterback, or really even above average quarterback. I think that above average is his goal as a starting quarterback in the league. And I think that he could get there if he has a good O-line and the Bears somehow bring back Allen Robinson or an equivalent wide receiver, which I swear to God, if I read another article where they're Corey Davis would be a good target to replace Allen Robinson, I'm going to lose it, because Corey Davis is a number 2 wide receiver we saw what he was whenever he was a number one. He
Yeah.
vanishes.
He's a top end number two, but he's not one you want at number one.
Yeah.
But I agree. Mitch kind of makes sense for the Bears if they're sort of in limbo in the draft. They don't want to trade up and try to grab someone. He's made the playoffs twice. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think like basically winning is a QB stat as everyone says, but you can win if you can win with guys. It's not like let's get rid of them automatically. I know the Rams are doing it, and a lot of the other teams are doing it, but not everyone's going to be that team that goes and grabs someone. Especially if it doesn't make this sense this year, because this is lining up for a lame duck year for the Bears, where they're probably going to clean house if they don't make the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
And if it's lame duck, a lot of times what happens is they suck and they get a high draft pick. So I only have like one person, and you already mentioned you think Darnold's going to stay with the Jets. And I think Darnold's on the move, and I think he's not going to move that far. And I think the Steelers are going to make a play, because the Steelers are this team that no one's really talking about. Because I think a lot of people are saying that Ben's going to retire, but it's retire. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to stay another year. He didn't play that bad. The reason, like, he wasn't amazing, but they had no run game. I mean, no run game at all, which is like probably the first time I think there's ever happened for the Steelers. I think they're going to come back and try to give it one more go. But even if they don't, I think they need someone other than Rudolph. And I think Darnold's a good person to put in that spot, because they ain't getting a good. I forgot they re-signed Haskins. There's no way that guy. I think he's got the talent, but I mean, if you don't have the maturity, I mean, he's the least mature QB probably like since like Jamarcus Russell. So I'm not gonna make him worse than Jamarcus Russell, but I mean, right off the bat with the selfies after the first win, they couldn't find him to the QB kneel in case Keenum had to go in. It has not improved since then. So I'm surprised that the Steelers would. I mean, their judgment sometimes is very odd. Yeah, I think Darnold is going to move somewhere. I mean, I could see him going to San Fran or going or the Colts or something. He's really a wild card, and I think it's also obviously really likely the Jets stay. But whenever you hear like that team that's rumored to draft a QB and you're at 2, it's hard to like not draft the fancy toy for those for those franchises.
Yeah, I personally think that they go offensive lineman or trade back at 2. I would just think it makes sense. I mean, I know Darnold, he's in his 4th year?
This will be year 4, because he had that.
This will be year 4.
Bulls year 1, then looked okay. Year 2, mono year, and then
Yeah, I think that Darnold stays there. They draft an offensive lineman, and if he doesn't do it, they're up in the front of the draft again next year, and they draft a new quarterback. I did have the Steelers highlighted as a team just to discuss, because I mean, Big Ben is up there, and it is very interesting because I mean, he had his fast at like one point in the season. They were like measuring like the amount of time before he threw a pass, and it was the fastest he's ever done it. Like he was just basically drop back, like getting like 2 steps, not even a 3-step drop back, and having to get rid of the ball. And it was because, I mean, they didn't have a run game, and that offensive line had a lot of injuries, like weeks 3 through like 6 and during the season.
Yeah,
which made him have to get rid of the ball even faster. I'm also not sure if part of it, like I know he had like a really short depth of target, but part of that, as we said, is no run game and no pocket. But I'm curious how much of that is his Tommy John surgery and how much he has left in that arm.
I think he's got more than what Breeze had left, and I think we're seeing a lot of these. It feels like a lot of these like old-time QBs, they literally wait until the very end to retire. I think Philip Rivers had maybe a little more left in the gas, but the Chargers year before that, people were calling for his retirement because he looked so bad. But
I do like that landing spot of Darnold. Like if the Jets go out and draft a quarterback, or even if they don't go out and draft a quarterback and they play the year, Darnold doesn't have a great season and they draft a new quarterback next year. I love the landing spot of the Steelers because I still I wasn't a huge fan of Darnold. coming out of college, but since seeing him in the NFL, I personally have started to like him a little bit more. And I think that in the right system, which I think in Pittsburgh is that system, you'd have like a defense that would actually support him, and then he doesn't have to win you a game. He just has to not lose you a game. And I think Darnold can do that and do a little bit more too and win you a couple games, especially with the talent at wide receiver there moving forward. Granted, Juju's gone, but Deontay and Claypool are fantastic.
It's miles ahead of the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember Darnold looked solid his rookie year. Everyone was like, okay, that's a good rookie year. And then the second year, he comes out and plays like crap against the Bills, and then revealed that he had mono. And then he comes out, beats the Cowboys, like when the Cowboys were rolling, and then he has that Ghosts game. And if you take out that Ghosts game against the Patriots, his stat line's actually really good for a second year. But then no off season, and then all those horrible. It just seemed like that Jets locker room was the worst place to be in the NFL. To start this past season. So we'll see how it goes. We'll hear more and more and more about rumor leaks, but it does look like I've seen so much with the Jets just either trading back or drafting Sewell, which I don't think they're going to draft Sewell just because they already got Becton. It's going to be all these contracts, but you never know. A receiver would not be a bad idea for them if they can get back a little bit because they got nobody. So this was interesting. Went a little longer than I thought it would, but you have anything else you want to bring up? Any last QB to keep an eye out for?
The only two quarterbacks I'm going to say to keep an eye out for that will probably be on the move, maybe not have too much impact, is I do think that Kyle Trask will end up getting drafted somewhere interesting. I've been thinking the Colts might go out and get him because they're not a team that wants to give up a lot of capital. And I think that Trask could fall until the late second, which would be that's on the money for what the Colts would want to spend. They might even trade up to the mid second if they really wanted to grab him. And the other player is, I don't expect him to land a starting job, but he is a relatively talented quarterback, and that's Tyrod Taylor. He is an unrestricted free agent this year. So
see if he can get a bridge job.
It will be interesting to see if he looks for a team like San Francisco or Chicago, anywhere where there's uncertainty at the quarterback position to try and get some more playing time because he's not getting another starting job. And with the Chargers, Herbert has locked that down.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he wants to be a backup. Well, he can still has like some chance to be a starter. And different guys like Bridgewater could be on the move too. Brissett, I think he's probably gonna stay in the Colts because they gave him a pretty big contract. I felt like after Andrew Luck, but there were some rumors about Andrew Luck coming back. I think they've been squashed, but that would be fun. But all right, it was good talking to you, Scott.
Yeah, good talking to you.
We'll see you next time, guys. All right.